From Joe Rogan embarrassing himself to Anderson Silva and Chris Weidman sharing a kiss. These are the most embarrassing moments in UFC history.
I am here.
During UFC 281's main event, Alex Pereira defeated Israel Adesanya to capture middleweight gold. This was great for Pereira, but it's also the time famous podcaster and UFC commentator Joe Rogan embarrassed himself. For whatever reason, Joe kept saying it was Pereira's 5th MMA fight. However, in reality, it was Pereira's 8th fight. Jeez, Joe, do your homework, man. Ever heard of Google? It's pretty neat. You should check it out. Even after Pereira defeated Israel Adesanya with a technical knockout in the 5th round, Joe kept repeating the flub during the post-fight interviews. This was an embarrassing moment for Joe, who's considered an expert in all things UFC. Are you ready for one of the most embarrassing fights in UFC history? Check this out. Mirko Cro Cop Filipovic versus Gabriel Gonzaga.
Mirko Cro Cop, Gabriel Gonzaga. The winner will get a title shot.
Coming into the UFC, Cro Cop had a big reputation following him from Pride. Notorious for his head kicks and knees, Cro Cop was set to fight Randy Couture for the heavyweight title, and all he had to do was beat Gonzaga first. Unfortunately, Cro Cop had no idea what was waiting for him. His own weapon was used against him, and Gonzaga delivered a vicious head kick that knocked him out. Gonzaga went on to the title fight, and Cro Cop went on to lose to Chick Congo. Get a load of these embarrassing weigh-in moments. Max Holloway looked like a skeleton prior to his featherweight title rematch with Jose Aldo.
Max Holloway!
But that wasn't the most embarrassing part. When Holloway stripped down, two guys held up a banner upside down to hide his private parts, but they lifted it up over the scale and everyone, reporters, photographers, TV cams, the world essentially saw Max's junk. Oh, for the love of God, put it away. Standing there in his birthday suit, Holloway was humiliated, but at least he won the fight. Let's look at more embarrassing commentary moments. Mike Goldberg was infamous for numerous bloopers during commentary.
We got the best job in the world.
We do have the best job in the world.
Pretty awesome, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Great to be here tonight.
Despite having more than 2 decades of experience as a commentator, Goldberg routinely made comments that raised eyebrows and made observers say, "Did he really just say that?" UFC Fight Night 9 was one such occasion. Kuniyoshi Hironaka faced Forrest Petz, and in the final round, the Japanese fighter's corner shouted instructions in his native Japanese. Goldberg, however, mistook the language for Portuguese. Joe Rogan corrected Goldberg, but that's when things got even more embarrassing. Believe it or not, Goldberg's spouse is, yep, you guessed it, Japanese. If you're speechless right now, don't worry because that makes 2 of us. Anyway, let's get back to some embarrassing fight moments with George St. Pierre versus Matt Serra.
UFC belt on the line tonight. Protect yourself at all time. Obey my command at all time. If you want to touch down, do it now, go back.
The rematch. Serra loved to talk smack and didn't hold back heading into his rematch with GSP. GSP took Serra to the ground and BJJ Master worked him all over the place. But in the second round, GSP drove repeated knees into Serra's ribs, one after the other. Wham, bam, and wham, very quickly. The fight was stopped. Clearly, Serra's overconfidence and cockiness didn't help him against the master technician like GSP. Lesson learned. Now check out this embarrassing weigh-in moment. Remember that time Iwan Cutelaba channeled his inner Hulk during UFC weigh-in? Cutelaba painted himself, including his hair, green. He ripped his t-shirt open, and Hulk snarled at his opponent, Jonathan Wilson. At least Cutelaba Hulk smashed his way to a victory over Wilson. One of the most embarrassing commentator moments came during a prelim bout at UFC 258. It involved commentator John Anik.
Looks like you guys are going to stick around even though Dana's gone. All right.
Anik is often a voice of reason who redirects his broadcast partners back into the events taking place inside the octagon whenever they get derailed by arguments. But at UFC 258, Anik made a bizarre and embarrassing statement during the second bout of the evening. Chris Gutierrez faced Andre Ewell in a prelim fight that took place at a catch weight of 140 pounds. And minutes into the first round, Anik decided to make a comparison between the 2 men. But unfortunately, instead of drawing a comparison between their skill sets, Anik highlighted that both Ewell and Gutierrez dealt with custody battles involving their children. Oh boy. And instead of backpedaling and fixing his blunder, Anik doubled down. He revealed that Ewell had no legal right to see his son, nor knew of his whereabouts. Jeez Louise. Maybe Anik had a few wobbly pops before starting his shift or something? I hope that was the case. In any event, check out this embarrassing matchup between Keith Jardine and Wanderlei Silva. Wanderlei Silva was trying to save his UFC career after 3 straight losses, so he needed to put Jardine away. Jardine was coming off a huge win over Chuck Liddell and hoped to put his name up among the top contenders of the light heavyweight division. Wanderlei caught Jardine with a flurry of knees and punches, and Jardine went down hard like a sack of potatoes. Silva held Jardine's head and pummeled him until the fight was called 36 seconds in. Unfortunately for Jardine, he lost all credibility as a top contender. Ouch. Yep, no one in the UFC is safe from embarrassing moments. Not even UFC President Dana White. Let's look at an embarrassing weigh-in moment involving the UFC boss. Who can forget the time John Jones and Anthony Rumble Johnson pranked Dana at UFC 187? Jones and Johnson butted heads, went after one another, and a flustered White jumped in to try to keep the peace. Little did White know, he was being punked. Yep, just like an uppercut, embarrassing moments in the UFC have a habit of coming out of nowhere. Kind of like the time Joe Rogan uttered one of those infamous and embarrassing quotes in UFC commentator history. At UFC 98's main event, Rogan, who was known for making controversial and hyperbolic statements, said something that didn't age well. Fighter Lyoto the Dragon Machida was an undefeated Shotokan fighter up against Rashad Evans. Not surprisingly, the Dragon emerged victorious with a second-round KO. Rogan described the victory as the arrival of the Machida era. Those words would come back to haunt Rogan. The Dragon went on to defeat Mauricio Shogun Rua, but lost the title via first-round KO in a rematch after only one successful title defense. Yes, the UFC is chock full of embarrassing moments, like the time Bob Sapp fought Jerome LeBanner. Let's be honest, Sapp is a scary-looking dude, the sort of intimidating figure that you wouldn't want to be alone with in a darkened alley at night. But Sapp is also sensitive, even teddy bear-like. Sapp's loss to LeBanner was by far the worst loss of his career. Sapp cried in between rounds because he couldn't handle the punishment that LeBanner kept dishing out. This reminds me of all the crying Sapp did in 2005's The Longest Yard. Aw, poor Bob. Everything's gonna be alright. Come here, big guy. Let me give you a big hug. There we go. It's not too often that UFC fighters wear their hearts on their sleeves and show so much emotion. Almost reminds me of the time that Anderson Silva and Chris Weidman shared a romantic kiss at UFC 162's weigh-in. Honestly, I had no idea they felt this way about each other. It warms my heart. At the weigh-in, Silva and Chris went head-to-head, and when neither middleweight was willing to back down, they pressed their mouths together. Reminds me of the chorus from an old song I used to listen to way back in the day. Your mind's telling me no, but my body's telling me yes. Weidman ended up stopping Silva during their bout, probably because all that Silva could focus on was the romantic pre-fight moment. You've just witnessed some of the most embarrassing moments in UFC history. Do you think of any other moments deserving of a spot on our list? If so, let us know.